Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. You may have noticed that I like to make soft stuffed animals, like the frog here. They're so much fun and so cuddly, and this is the only one I have left because we keep giving them away. I also made some really cute cats and dogs. These were so much fun because they're made from a panel and you can stitch them up really fast. And we just got in a new panel, and so that's what I'm going to show you how to sew today. Here's the panel. It has everything printed on it. It has the directions printed on it and all the pieces. So we are going to be able to make a cute little girl elf, and she's got some ears and a darling hat. She also has a little apron, and we can tuck some of her friends in there. We've got a penguin, we've got a polar bear, and then we've got a little boy doll to match. He, again, cute ears, cute little hat. So all we need is the panel and a little bit of stuffing to give them a little dimension, maybe a jingle bell and a pom-pom. So let's take this down to the workroom and get started. Now, if you've never made one of the panel dolls, they're really fun, and all of the directions will be printed somewhere. We've got them all up here. We've got directions up here, and every piece, it's got dotted lines where we're going to cut. So we're going to cut around all these pieces. There's also some hints and examples, so we're going to want to keep those and not throw those away. For now, I'm just going to cut out the doll front and back and ears, and then the boy doll front and back and ears. I find a sharp pair of scissors is the easiest way to cut this, and I'm just going to go around all these lines. The first thing we need to make is the ears for the elf. So I've got two halves here, and I'm going to switch to my home sewing machine because I can make it go real slow. When you have a lot of tight curves like this, you want your machine to go slow. So we're going to sew all the way around the outside here. We're going to leave this whole side open, and I'm going to use a small stitch length because I can control the speed better that way. And I'm also going to back tack at the beginning here. So you may need to stop so that you can get around these curves evenly. So go as slow as you need to, but that way you can get around these curves successfully. And then back tack at the end also. I'm going to trim off the excess in the corner here, and even a little bit more, so that we can turn this right side out. Now this is a really little piece. It's a little tricky to get these turned right side out. So you can poke with your fingers till you get it kind of poked out. And then there's a lot of tools that people have. I have this, which is specifically made for helping you turn things, and it's got that nice point. So we can get our elf's ear a little bit pointed there. So keep working with this till you get the edges all turned nice and flat, and then iron it. Now the ears are going to go right here. There's even a little line so you know where to place it. So I'm going to put it with the raw edges together and just stick a pin in there. Now we're going to put the doll or the elf front to back. So they're cut exactly the same size, so we just need to line everything up, stick a few pins in, and then we're going to sew all the way around the edge right on the color change here. So they've already got that 1/4 inch already marked, and we're going to leave an opening. We're going to leave an opening right along the side here, and that's the opening through which we are going to flip the elf right side out. I like to put just a few pins in so that nothing moves. Be sure to back tack at the beginning and the end here so your stitching doesn't come out when you're flipping it. And go all the way around. So you're going to want to pivot at those corners and just go slow and careful all the way around. And I might recommend doing a little extra stitching when you come to these ears here do some extra stitching, because that's an area that your kids might pull the ears, so you want those to stay on securely. So I'm coming to where I'm going to end my opening here. It's starting right here, and I'm going to go just above where this leg starts. I stitched from this side. It's a good idea to flip this over and check around the edges to make sure that you are inside all of the printed area. See, my stitching here is a little outside, so I'm going to have a little white area of her hair, which should be all black. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm just going to restitch this inside here a little bit farther, and I'm going to check the rest of the way around to make sure that hasn't happened anywhere else. Now we need to clip these interior angles almost to your stitching. So clip all of these guys like this, being careful not to cut any of your threads. And then anything pointy like an outside angle here, we're going to trim it off, maybe even a little extra. And then it's a pretty small seam here, but if you want, you can notch it a little bit and it will turn on the curve a little more even. So do that on the tight curves. Now we're going to get it flipped right side out. So I don't have a very big opening. Basically, you just have to start poking in from the back side, poking and pulling until you get the legs right side out, and then the arms right side out, and then we'll do the head last. I have a variety of tools that I use to help me flip little things like this right side out, and they look kind of like torture instruments since we're working on a little person here, but they're not going to hurt it, I promise you. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. On the little hand here, if you can separate these two halves and then poke in a little from this side, takes a little doing there. You can use your flipping tool, or you can use any sort of dull stick or a chopstick, and you can just slide this over it. Once you get it started, it will really help you flip it. So don't poke too hard, because you don't want to poke through, because my end is kind of pointy. In fact, you can even use the back end if it's big enough. And so I'm just going to glide this down over here until I get it to where I can see the inside of it here from the opening. I can reach in from this side until I got, that's a little hand right there. Now I can pull here, and that just flipped real easy there. Now I'm going to take the tool again and go back in, and I'm just going to slide it along the seam here. Get the thumb poked out, get the little hand poked out here, all the way along that seam. Sometimes I will use the tweezers here to go in and pull this out. Sometimes if it's skinny, you even can use the needle nose pliers, grab it and pull. And once in a while, like on the little boot here, I will use this. It's not real sharp, but you can use this to kind of pull and push from the backside, and it's not as sharp as a needle, so it's probably not going to poke a hole in it, but it's a good instrument for getting that nice and pointy. I have some of this batting here. This is loose batting. It's not scraps from what I use when I'm quilting. It's very, very loose and pulls apart, and that's great for this project because I need little teeny bits to stuff those small legs. We're going to want to do the legs first, so take little bits of this batting and we're going to just shove it down the leg there, and we're just going to have to work little bits in at a time. And those legs are pretty skinny, and that's why we want just little bits of batting. So I'm going to do a little bit, and I'm going to have to kind of move that down there, and I'm probably going to use the stuffing tool here. Get that down in there and work little bits down in. I've got both legs and both arms stuffed, and we're going to want to sew right across the top of each leg so that the elf will be able to sit and move the arms. So I'm going to just tuck this stuffing all the way into that leg there and sew right across the bottom here. So do that for both legs and both arms. Now all we have to do is stuff the body and the head, and then we are going to hand stitch this little opening closed. I have the doll all stuffed. You want to make sure you get enough in the neck so that the head isn't too floppy. And stuff the body pretty well all the way up even to the opening. And then we're just going to move that stuffing. We're just going to push it down a little bit so that we can get this opening closed. Now you can pin this if you like, or you can just simply turn it in and start sewing. And I don't do a lot of hand sewing, but I can do a little overcast stitch. So I'm going to use matching thread here. Put that knot inside. I'm just going to hold it tight here and just do little teeny stitches and stitch this up. We have the little girl elf doll done, but we need to make her skirt. So I like to cut these pieces out right before I'm going to use them because the directions refer to these labels here, O, P, and Q. And if I cut everything out ahead of time, I'm not going to know which these are referring to. So I like to do one section at a time. So let's do all the skirt pieces now. Okay, so we're going to iron this 1/4 inch along the top edge here. It's pretty easy on this because there was a little dotted line printed there. And then this part we're going to iron 1/4 inch and then 1 inch. And I actually measured that to make sure it was nice and straight. Now we're going to put this on here and we're going to stitch along the bottom and flip it around, so I'll show you. So I'm going to stitch these together here, but before I do that, I'm going to just narrow hem this and narrow hem this. So I'm just going to stitch right near the fold here. Now I'm going to stitch these two together using a 1/4 inch seam, so I'm going to turn it around, start at this end. Now we want to iron this cute part of the skirt facing this way. The easiest way to do it is to finger press this open. Then it will fold much easier right on that line there. And then we can iron it. Now we need to make some pockets in the skirt. There's little pockets here so we can put the little stuffed penguin and polar bears. So you could mark this with some sort of marking tool, but I find it best to I'm just going to crease this with my thumb here, and I can stitch right along that line. And then we're going to do another line 2 3/4, 2 3/4, same thing this way. So I'm just going to put a little fold right at that spot because it only needs to stay there just while I sew it. It only needs to stay there just for a minute. So I'm just going to stitch right along here to create a little pocket. And you probably want to back tack at the top here because if those little stuffed things are getting put in and out, there's going to be a lot of stress right there. To finish the skirt, we are going to sew this one last seam here, but we're going to stop before we get to this part because this is actually going to be a casing here, and we're going to make a little belt with our one last piece, and we're going to put that through that casing. So just stitch right to that point there. To make the little belt, we're just going to take this piece and fold it in half. We're going to stitch down one side, stitch all the way down the long side, and leave this end open so we can flip it right side out. Now I'm just going to take this belt, turn it right side out, and then we're going to put a safety pin on one end of it, and we're going to slide it through the casing in the top of the skirt. Now we're going to take the belt and we're just going to feed it through the casing. So the easiest way is to put a safety pin on there, and then we will just push it through here and go all the way around. Once you get it in, it'll go pretty easy. Now that it's all the way through, we're going to tie the skirt on, and now we're ready to make her cute little elf hat. The hat is really easy. We are going to cut around these pieces, and then here we're going to iron this back 1 inch, stitch it, and then we're going to put these right sides together, stitch around the open sides. That's all we have to do. Here's the elves all finished up. They are so happy and so fun. So these are some little penguins, little polar bears, and they fit right in the pockets of the little dress here. You can even put these loose ones back here if you like, but I'd like to have them out so they can all play together. Now the hat just slips right on. You can take it on or off. And I put a little ball on the end of it, a little pom-pom, because I think it's very cute. You could use a jingle bell up here. You can also add jingle bells to their toes if you like. So these were just tons of fun to make. And I think my grandkids would just have a blast playing with these. And we're going to put them over here with their other friends, and we're going to wait for Christmas. Thanks for watching our tutorial today on how to make these stuffed elves. Happy quilting!